Everyone, welcome to the C3 Comic Book Reading Club, our first live stream discussing Tillie Walden on A Sunbeam. Woo! It's been a long month. It's been a lot of reading. It's a thick book, but it's a fun book, and it's science fiction, and it's memorable characters, and it's great situations. I just wanted to go around real quick, have everybody introduce themselves. Let's start. Somebody start off, I guess. Yeah.
Sure, I'll go. I'm Chandu. I've been at C3 for like a couple of years, and this is the first time I have read On a Sunbeam, or anything by Tillie Walden. I'm super excited to discuss this.
Awesome.
Sarah, you want to go next?
Yeah, I can go next.
Oh, Eric, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Hey, I'm Ari. My pronouns are he, him. I just joined C3, and this is my second time reading On a Sunbeam, and I'm a really big Tillie Walden fan, so very excited to talk about this.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I just connected with C3 back in the spring at the Space Small Press and Alternative Comics Expo. So very excited to connect with everyone. I'm a comics writer. My series that's live now is No Spell Lasts Forever. And I'm also a big Tillie Walden fan. I loved Clementine, and I had been meaning to read On a Sunbeam for a while, so glad to finally have a chance to do it.
Yay.
Awesome. Yeah. So I wanted to start off with I think it's interesting how people find comics, and I like to ask cartoonists, how did you get into comics initially? But I thought it would be fun to ask Ari, how did you find this book? What's your story there?
Okay, so my story with finding this book is I've been kind of discouraged from reading graphic novels my whole life, but I had finally broken through that barrier of wanting to read graphic novels again, but I didn't know where to start because there are so many. And so I asked my friend, what graphic novels do I read to become a good graphic novelist, a good comic writer? And she's like, well, I don't know about that, but here's On a Sunbeam. You should read this. And then I read it, and I'm like, yeah, this was exactly what I was looking for. Thank you very much.
Okay, Sarah, how did you run? I know Shandu's story. Because we've been discussing it on the Fable app, which you can join, where we discuss all of our books in our program. But Sarah, how did you find On a Sunbeam? I'm curious to hear your story as well.
It had been on my radar for a while because, I got into Clementine because The Walking Dead. So that's what led me to Clementine, and that's how I kind of realized that I love Tillie Walden's writing. And so just kind of looked up more of what she had written. I also work at the library, the Gahanna branch for Columbus people. And we had it there for a while, and it was on a display in the teen graphic novels section for a while. So I kept walking past it. And I just didn't get to it for a while, but it was kind of in the back of my mind for a long time that this is one I'm going to have to read at some point for sure.
Awesome. Well, I think that those are both really cool stories of, how we found this book. And I wanted to just open it up and ask everybody, what is your favorite moment from the book?
Before we go there, Lucas, Carl, how did you find this book?
How did I? We can go into that. I used to frequent the Columbus Metropolitan Library in my 20s, and I would just check out comic after comic, and I would go home with a big stack of comics. I think I read this in the same weekend as some other books, but I would honestly just go in and pick up stuff that interests me. So when I saw the cover, and it had this image of a sci-fi story, I'm a big fan of Stanley Kubrick, and I'm a big fan of Planet of the Apes and all kinds of different sci-fi franchises. and stuff. So the cover really pulled me in. And then when I read it, the characters are so likable that it's hard to put down. And like kind of the melodrama of it, and this whole thing, you know, there's a the plot of Mia trying to find Grace and stuff. You can't help; it's a real page turner. You can't help but wonder if Mia's going to find Grace by the end. So, you know, yeah, that's my story on that.
Thank you. Sorry, we can go back to your question.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, so what is everyone's favorite moment from the book? Does anyone have a particular scene that stuck out to them or a particular moment?
I think the moment that stuck with me the most is when Mia is, she's been, you know, locked in that room, kind of the mean girls locked her in that room at the school, and Grace is about to leave, and she's running, and she gets there and she's too late. And that moment stuck with me. It's heartbreaking. But I think it's one of the ones that my mind keeps going back to when I think about this book.
Yeah, no, it's... Ugh.
Ari, would you like to share your favorite moment?
So I think my favorite moment is smaller. The one that like I remembered for years and I was really excited to get to again is the moment where Mia goes to help Eli with the works, and it's that full page of them waving to welcome Mia into their world. And like for the whole like first like 80 pages of the book, they're kind of like, they seem kind of closed off, kind of cold, like they don't really talk or communicate with anyone. And then it's like that single page changes your whole perspective of this person. Like, oh, they're not a slacker. They've been working very hard on something we didn't understand. And just, it's a page I've remembered for years. And as I said, the second time I was coming to it, I'm like, yes, it's coming. It's coming. We're getting there. I want to frame that on my wall.
It's a great splash page, and it's very memorable. And there's a lot of light sources going on with it too. It's a very nice page. Shandu, what's your favorite moment from the book?
Oh my gosh, there's so many, and I think both of the ones y'all mentioned are awesome choices. One that I mean, I don't know if it's my favorite, but like definitely one that stuck with me is like very, very fleeting, and I didn't even catch it until I like reread it. Was like when they actually infiltrate the staircase and they're looking for Grace, right? And there's one point where like Mia first walks into the house that Grace grew up in. Like nobody is there really, but like, you know, because this is a side that Mia has never seen of Grace, right? And like just trying to get in her mind, or in Mia's mind of like walking into that space and how haunting that is, like, you know, knowing that, you know, her person grew up here and she had no idea like what it was like. So, and there's like little, you know, the way it's shown is really cool, where like, you know, Mia is like looking out these big windows and like there's like this trickle of smoke behind her, and then Grace is like fading in and out, you know, in her memory. And it's like, yeah, just a great way to like capture that feeling.
There's a real great sense of a passage of time too, from the A plot and the B plot, and hopping between and showing us the future and the past with this book. And I think that speaks to that, because there is a little bit of Mia's even apprehensive that Grace is going to be gracious, you know, once she finds Grace. You know, we're not sure that relationship is even going to be rekindled on any level. So there's a lot of suspense there. And yeah, there is a meaning of like walking through an empty house, you know, there as well. Let's see. Oh yeah, and I found the page of Elle right here. I'm going to hold it up to the camera the best I can. It's just a beautiful page. One thing I wanted to talk about Tillie's art is not afraid to use black, not afraid to spot some blacks and go heavy with it. I mean, you'll have pages like this, or any of the splash pages, really, there's heavy use of black. Does anyone want to comment on the color palette of this book? It is very interesting. Shandu, you have any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, me?
I have thoughts.
Harry, go for it. You have the floor.
I think it's really interesting her use of limited color palettes and the way she like uses the color to show the emotions that the characters are feeling. Like in that scene where Grace and Mia kiss for the first time, it's a bunch of reds. It's a bunch of like very intense passion. And unlike the rest of the past scenes, which are kind of more faded and blue, this is still like red and fresh. It's a fresh and open wound for Grace. The scene with Elle that we were just talking about is them in this lit corridor, which is yellow is warm and opening, where Elle has previously been depicted with blues. Tillie is really great at using colors to emphasize and underscore what the characters are feeling, create mood.
I could not have a better description of that, Ari. That's great. Yeah, the colors do convey a mood. Yeah, I remember when Mia and Grace kiss, their characters turn red for a moment, you know, and I thought that was a wise choice on kind of remarking on that chapter in particular. It was a wise choice to go no dialogue for that whole chapter. I think it was more, it didn't need the dialogue in that case. You know, the images and the color palette gave us a mood and enough. So let's see. Let's jump on. I wanted to ask everybody, I thought this would be fun because there's so many great characters in this book. There's Char, there's Alma, it's very much an ensemble cast that are taking Mia on this journey. I wanted to ask each of you, what is your favorite character and why? Shandu, you go first. I'm picking on you because I know you're the best.
Appreciate it. That's a hard choice. I mean, I think I'll have to go with Jules. This is my favorite. Like, she's like never afraid to speak her mind, and like just yeah. I mean, also is a really good like narrative device to like, you know, because she's the one like, I don't know anything, tell me everything, like, you know, and so like everybody else has to explain what's going on, and you know, but she also has like tiny little, you know, single word thing, and she's like, okay, oh my god, or like, you know, just the attitude, like
yeah,
so great. Yeah
Sarah, what is your favorite character from the book and why?
I think the character I enjoy reading the most probably is Jules, for similar reasons. I love her attitude. I think I probably relate most to Charlotte. I think because she's kind of like a quieter person, and she's this introverted person, but she still is able to be a leader and kind of like rally that inner strength when she needs to. And as an introverted person, I like seeing introverts represented that way.
Yeah, and last but not least, Ari, who is your favorite character from the book and why?
So my first time around reading, my favorite character was Eli, because I recently come out as trans, and they were the first like trans character I ever seen in a book who got to really have a story and an arc outside of their transness. Like a lot of times, especially like when I was growing up, if you had a gay or trans character, their story was always had to be the coming out story. And I appreciated that Eli's story wasn't the coming out story, and hearing people react to their misgendering and be like, hey, please stop. But this time, like the characters I really paid attention to and I really liked reading were Jules and Alma, specifically for that like understated relationship of Alma is trying to be a mother figure to Jules, but Jules is just not ready for it. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to figure out and navigate that family dynamic. And I thought that was really understated and well done.
Yeah, and it's surprising how good Elle is at combat. You know, that comes out of nowhere. We have this silent character throughout most of the book, and then we have that training sequence with the sticks, and then, you know, Elle shows everybody up.
Yeah, they just floor it. And then you get that backstory with the staircase, and it's like, and now it makes sense. Mm-hmm. Right. Now it makes sense.
Yeah, they come from this hostile environment, right? The staircase is the most dangerous place in space on this book, you know, and it's really it's the climax. You know, we have to go to this dangerous part of the galaxy or whatever.
Falling apart, like literally.
Right. It is. It's not going to be here forever. It's dissolving.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, it's that fight scene is like, or not the fight scene, the training scene is set up really well too, where it's like, oh, hey, Alma's like, hey, Jules and Mia, come at me, and then like she's like, yeah, you're getting better now, you fight Elle, and like Elle kicks their asses with one hand, like
Yeah.
it's
That's what I mean. I think I'm Team Jules. I just am. I'm Team Jules. There were several times in the book. I don't normally like laugh anymore out loud when I'm reading a book anymore, but there was quite a few moments where I was reading this book and Jules cracking me up along the way with the sarcastic remarks and the attitude and the F-bombs and stuff.
The moment where she's in the bed with Eli after they've gotten beat to heck and back, and she's just like, "Sup, queen."
Yeah. Just some trash talking in there, some trash talking. I had this question I'll pose to all of you. Did you end up and maybe just raise your hand on this? Raise your hand if you have some input. But did you reread any passages? Did anybody reread anything while they were reading it? Did you have to go back and reread anything, or was it all very clear, or was there
I didn't have any time. I read this in like the last. I got invited to this panel Monday night, and I read it in the last like 48 hours. So I was just like, go,
go. Okay. Right. Yeah. I didn't. I selfishly picked this book for the book club because I wanted to reread it and own a copy of it for reference. I wanted it on my bookshelf. I was like, I really love this book and would love to revisit it. And enough time had passed for me. I read it when I was 26 and now I'm 34. So, a little bit of time and age. I definitely got different things out of it reading it this time than I did when I was younger.
Same.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of themes and double meanings going on with this book. I remember Shandu talking about on the Fable app about some of the there's scenes at the beginning that are mini versions of things that are going on in the plot. Shandu, do you want to talk about that at all? I thought that was a really interesting point.
Thank you. Like, I think it needed. I mean, I needed to go back and for it to really settle for me too. But like, there's this game in the book that they're playing, and and there's lots of parallels like to how the game works or supposed to work, because okay, I'm gonna go on a soapbox for a little bit. Like one of the things I loved about this book was the world building. Like, just there are things that there's just random buildings floating in space, and it works. And like the fish and the ships look like fish, and it works. And like there's no need to dwell on, hey, this is the physics, or this is how this works. It's just like everybody's used to it, and it's like very easy to just fall into it and be like, this is how it works. And you're like, as you're reading the book, you pick up on you establish, as a reader, you establish the rules of that world, right? And what I was noticing was, like, when Mia is introduced to this space game, it's very similar. Like, she doesn't know this game. These characters are all playing this game, and they're like, yeah, we'll come on, join us. Like, you'll figure it out as you go along. And like, it's like Mia is almost us reading the book. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know how many of y'all took Shakespeare in class in school, but like, you talk about like microcosm and macrocosm, like the idea that what happens in the large world reflects in the small world. And like, I found a lot of that going on. Like, the initial one was, okay, here, you'll figure out the rules as you go along. And then further down in the book, Mia is actually playing, right? And then what happens, there's like 3 of them, and they're trying to like storm the castle, and like are overwhelmed with all these troops, right? And they're all like, oh no, we're gonna die, like, but they're just like, we have to go, L's strength is this. And like, they're all talking about the strategy, which is almost exactly what happens when they go to the staircase later in the book. So it's,
right.
it's like, so it was really interesting, like, just yeah, just drawing those parallels. But again, like, first time reading through, I was like, I just want to know what happens. Like,
Yeah, and I totally didn't catch that. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's
Good
very
eye picking up on that. That's amazing.
Yeah, Shandu brings some great points to the conversation on Fable app. I was rereading some of Shandu's Fable comments, and I was just like, I never really looked at it like that. I wanted to talk about a very important moment in the book where we sort of have the timelines converge, and that is the point of the Lux Games. Mia finds the Lux Games, and Grace encourages Mia to play on the school team. And we have a sequence where the Lux crash echoes where they're on the site, and they're rebuilding these museums in space on their flying fish. And they're going from site to site, and the crash of the Lux and the falling through the construction site and the failure of that converge at a moment. Does anyone have any thoughts on that they'd like to discuss? I feel like I'm quizzing you guys.
Go ahead, Sarah. If you've got thoughts, go ahead.
Oh, I thought it was a really interesting way to kind of show how Mia's feeling about herself in that moment, because she blamed herself for what happened in the Lux Games, and now she's blaming herself for this mistake that she made that kind of wrecked this building. And so I think in this moment she's feeling like she's still making the same mistakes over and over. Like, she left school and she's gone out and she's trying to start this new sort of chapter in her life, and she's trying to find Grace, but she's still stuck and still making the same kinds of mistakes. In her head, that's what she's thinking. I thought it was a really, really interesting way to kind of draw those parallels and show where she's at.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
Sarah, that's an awesome point. That's great.
Yeah, you said it better than I ever could.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. Sarah's got some great input on this story. I'm a big fan of these pages too, where just things resonate. Like let's just sit for a moment and look at this illustration. But the thing about it is the plot lends to it very well. Like, it will just be a big moment where we let this rest and stuff for a moment before we move on. Yeah, no, go ahead, Ari.
on that point, there are a lot of splash pages in this comic, and I'm partially wondering if the original publishing format of webcomic is part of what lended Tillie Walden to be able to take up so much space with these splash pages. Because in traditional comics, there can be a lot of pressure to condense and not use as many splash pages, such as Tillie Walden uses on A Sunbeam. And in her comics that are published, in her later comics, which are published first as comics and not webcomics, she doesn't use these splash pages as often. I think there's maybe like one or two in Are You Listening, which is her next book after this one.
That's a great point. I mean, this is not a big two book. This is not a DC book. This is not a Marvel book. This is a graphic novel. And and graphic novels lend themselves to this kind of narrative storytelling. We can have more than one splash page. We're not Jack Kirby. We're not trying to entice our readers to flip the page. No, this is a true space odyssey, and we're going to have as many pages as we need to tell it. Something I thought that was very interesting at the beginning of this book was Tillie listed all of her supplies she used to make the book, some particular pens from a trip to Japan and stuff. And where was I going with this? I think it shows that webcomics. I remember. Sorry. It's kind of, you can redraw a webcomic and make it into a graphic novel. And I think that's what's really interesting about this book is that you touched on this area, that it is a webcomic that became a graphic novel, right?
Yeah, it was so popular, it got a print run.
It got a what?
It got a print run.
Right. And, it speaks to the power of webcomics and self-publishing, that you can go out and you can tell your own story now. You don't really need a big press team behind it. You could do your own promotion and you have your work speak for itself online, I guess. Is kind of where I was going with that. Sorry, I kind of rambled there.
No, I mean, I think that's a great point too. Like, I mean, I think it lends itself also, like, one other thing that shows up because of that is like the chapters are all like different lengths. I mean, which happens a lot in like, regular prose books, I suppose. But like, if you're, like looking, or Carl and I were talking earlier about like trade paperbacks or like, issues of comics collected to make a graphic novel or whatever, like you can tell, like, there's everything is like whatever 20 pages long, and like, so like, because you're forced by the size of the issue to like fit it into that. But like, yeah, here it felt like she was taking her time as she needed, like let it linger, and yeah, it was really beautiful.
That's one of the things I like about her writing in general is she lets the emotional moments breathe. That's one of the things that I really loved about Clementine that first got me into her writing so much is the same, like you're in this like zombie Walking Dead world, but it's so much about like the emotional lives of Clementine and the characters, and she let it breathe.
Yeah, this book, the characters, even the way she draws the faces make great use of expressions.
Yeah.
They're simple enough to where I could see it was like, it was a webcomic and you were able to render these characters week after week. They're not overly rendered. We're given just enough information. And that's what I one of the things I love about this book is it's so easy to read what's going on. Even the characters' faces kind of have a curve to it. And so the expressions are great. And I think Tillie is a master at creating expressions, and expressions inform our reader of what that character is feeling. And I think this book is a master class on that, like throughout it. I wanted to ask a question. Did this book ever impact your mood at any point while reading it? Were you ever reading it and like, was there a particular section that made you pause, or was there a particular section that made you think about life or draw parallels or anything?
I feel like the whole thing.
The whole thing. Oh, okay. That's fair. That's fair. Sarah, go ahead.
No, I think it did. I think things that I read tend to impact, I don't know, kind of my mood a lot. I think I ruminate on stories that I read when they affect me, and when I get like invested in the characters and they just kind of stick in my mind throughout the day. And I did feel like that with this one. I think some of the sections where, like when Grace and Mia are reunited, and it's this kind of like they're figuring out how they're going to relate to each other, and they still care about each other, but so much has happened in their lives, and it's this kind of like reassessing where they're at in their lives right now. I think that one, there's kind of like a little bit of a melancholy feel to that scene, and that one I think kind of stuck with me in an emotional way. That one, and then it was, like I said before, the scene where she shows up and Grace is gone, just because it was so heartbreaking, made me sad for a while.
Right. Does anybody else want to comment on that?
I specifically the part where they're describing the staircase as like literally falling apart, but it's got this whole ecosystem that is unique and is never seen anywhere else in the universe, and the people are really dedicated to protecting it. And I was like, oh, this reminds me of Earth. This is deeply painful. Our fragile planet that is like crumbling, and like one day the Earth will be gone, and I have never made my peace with that. So that really hit me. And then the balance between protecting the ecology, like they're all mad at Eli because they're like, you killed the fox, you broke the greatest taboo, and he's like, and they're like, yeah, but the fox killed like my mentor, and I was really upset about it and angry. And also, like, who knows if the fox would have let Eli live? I think maybe there's a muddy water there. I think I didn't notice the ecology much around the first time, but I was keyed into it the second time around.
I wanted to read this comment Ben left, also a C3 member, and Ben wrote, I think Tillie made this with print in mind. She had already been working with publishers and had released several books by the time it came out. So you know, this wasn't, you know, Tillie's first rodeo. Making a graphic novel. Or
Yeah,
book.
she'd already gotten her MFA at this point and released her first book, memoir, which was about figure skating, which Jules dropping out of figure skating for punching a bunch of people. I'm like, is this from personal experience, Tillie?
Amazing.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
that's the book. That's Spinning, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's that book as well. I wanted to pose this question because of how are we doing on time? We're 30 minutes. I wanted to pose this question. The book sort of ends with you know, the reunion of Mia and Grace, right? Like that happens. That's our big moment. But there's sort of another chapter at the end that kind of leads them off on a sunbeam. Where do you see the characters going after that? Like, is there a possible scenario like where there's a story after that, or does anyone want to speak about the ending in particular? Some of the choices that were made there, because it's a coming of age story, and there's an implied story that could happen. I'm not talking about sequel, but you know, it's there potentially. But you know, what do we think about our characters flying off into the sunset? I guess.
I thought it was kind of the perfect ending for a coming of age story, because Alma and Shar you're starting their next chapter, and so kind of handing the reins over to Jules and Mia and Grace and Elle, because they realize that they've been through they've gone through this whole experience, this like really scary, frightening experience where they all almost died, but they came out of it and they've kind of proven what they're capable of, and so they hand them the reins and they say that like you've earned this, you can do this now, you can take the ship and go off and kind of do this on your own. So they're starting their kind of adult lives together, and for a coming of age story, I thought it was a really nice, really kind of fitting ending.
There's also, oh, sorry.
Oh, you're fine, Aaron. Go ahead.
There's also a parallel about Mia crashing the first Lux ship because she doesn't have anyone supporting her or alongside her, and then but then she's like, no, I'm not repeating my mistakes. I've grown since the beginning of the story where I fell and the Lux ship crashed. Together we will fix this ship. And like that's the main theme of the book. It's about teamwork and working together and not running off on your own. And like Grace is like, I can't do this, and Mia's like, yeah, you can. You can go outside the staircase and like go on adventures, and then you know they succeed. It's perfect. They work together. They're a team.
And when she's flying away at the end, she almost does crash the ship, but they work together and get it back up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Lux crash all over again, you know, and like echoed again, but this time Mia could do it, you know. Let's talk about the I kind of skipped ahead and I apologize for that. But can we talk about the moment of Mia and Grace being reunited and kind of what's up with our antagonists here? Let's talk about our villains. You know, we have like they come from the staircase and they wear hats. You know, they're kind of like they're farmers. You know, does anybody have any thoughts on that? I mean, I thought that was a choice for sure. I have my own thoughts, but I'll let you guys go.
Well, I think it's explained in the text. The reason why they're wearing these big hats is to keep the dust out of their hair. So it's like it's a cleanliness thing and an adaptation to the desert. And also, I don't think they're really villains. I think Tillie goes out of her way to explain why they're isolationists. She's like, look, like this might seem crazy to you that they hate outsiders so much, but like people have been trying to plunder their land and continuously plunder their land for generations, and they're sick of it. So it's definitely a better safe than sorry situation. So they are antagonists, but I wouldn't put them in the class of villains. Fundamentally, I think they just want to like live in their home and have their like culture and traditions respected. And the fact is that Eli broke that, and I could see why they would be very upset about that and maybe not be as understanding or gracious as we wish they would.
Right. They're out to kill Eli. they're out for blood. You know, they're not happy. You know, if you come back to the staircase, hey, you're done. You know.
Yeah. I mean, broke the greatest taboo.
Right. I was drawing some parallels with where Jules went. It kind of echoed Princess Mononoke. I thought that creature Jules fought, and I was like, Tillie must be a Ghibli or Ghibli fan because of how much that was. It was a big spirit monster, and that's why. Am I getting this wrong? Or is that is Elle's reason for exile, right?
He killed one of them. They killed one of them.
Yeah. They just killed one of these spirit beings, I guess, that watched over the staircase or whatever. Yeah. And we're exiled. You got to get out of here. You killed that demon beast. You killed our god or something. I don't know what was going on exactly. I don't think they explicitly tell it. It's just accepted in the world.
Yeah, you killed an ancient creature. You killed like one of our like animals that live here with no reason, and you're gonna.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Like the choice there of like you don't see either of those things happen. Like either the ancient creature killing Elle's mentor or Elle actually killing the ancient creature. But like again, like you see the aftermath and and the fallout from that, but like not necessarily. I felt like the choice was cool to like not trivialize it by like putting a bunch of action there. Like, yeah, it was just like a very grave thing.
I think that's the difference from like novels and books, right? Like novels imply things, books write everything out. So I think, that's like the key difference here, and that's something this book does, it implies things, and we're supposed to accept those things, and we can read into them. We could make, we could probably sit here and make a thesis on it with some of the points Ari made and stuff. We have some really great points about this. We're at 30. We're making really good time. I want to ask everyone: was there a moment that surprised you the most? Was there something that was shocking to you, where you were kind of caught off guard? I think my moment would be when Mia becomes friends with the school bully. They like cut ahead and they were like, "Oh, we're pretty good friends now." Actually, I think she's retelling Grace this, like, "Oh, you know what? That bully that stole your powers, stole your bracelet. We're good friends now." So I thought that was fun. Anything else that surprised anyone?
I think when Elle finally speaks, and I loved it. And their words are, I think we'll see about that. Because I think it's one of their family members is telling them, like, you're back here, they're gonna find you, they're gonna kill you. And Elle's like, we'll see about that. And I loved that the first words we get from Elle are this like confidence, this like, well, I'll show you.
Yeah, they also smoke in that scene, which was insane to me.
Yeah.
I've never seen them pick up a cigarette and then they're like,
right. Yeah.
Yep.
There is some adult situations in this book. There is some swearing. There's some smoking and stuff. I think whenever the swearing happens, I'm caught off guard almost. I don't know why. Maybe it was my Irish Catholic upbringing. Okay, we have a comment here from our fearless leader, Sydney Kitt wrote, "This was a great book to start off the reading club. Great pick and great conversations about it on the Fable app." Okay. Yeah, so like I said, it was fun talking to Sid and Shandu about this book. It's it's a great sci-fi story.
Actually, I wanted to like linger on that, on Elle talking too. Like the first words that you mentioned, Sarah, like it's a full splash page, right? Like it's
Okay.
like, yeah, I love it. Like, and it's like the most badass thing they could say. But then like there was another moment though, like when earlier when Elle and Mia get separated, or like not get separated, they decide to go different ways, right? Basically, Elle is telling Mia to go find Grace, and Elle has to do what they have to do, which is like, see get closure on the whole like mentor thing. they say something to Mia, they whisper something, and the dialogue is cut off. That yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I know.
I hated that. Like,
It's
come on.
a secret. Yeah.
Oh, man,
Yeah,
that's
it's
so
cut
sad.
off, and that was a great typography choice. You know, we don't know what happens there, and Tillie teases us, puts the panel right, or the dialogue balloon right next to the panel, and there's like an impression of words there. You know, like, can I ever find out what that means? Probably not. But I thought that was a lot. Yeah, that was pretty great. That was a great choice. I think something that shocked me about the book. I can't think of anything. I'm gonna move on. Yeah. I can't. I stuttered for a moment. Let's see. Is there anything that you would like to comment on in general, just like a general overall, like something we haven't spoken about yet? I'm going to open up the floor to everyone here. Anything we haven't touched on? Sarah, it's you. Carry the torch.
I think one thing that we kind of touched on a little bit, but that I thought was really interesting is kind of what we were saying about how she doesn't explain everything. Like, how does the fish ship work, and why does it look like a ship, and like all of these things. And she does that kind of throughout. And I think it's a really cool way to do world building without, like, because as a writer, I think my inclination is to always, like, I think I always want to give too much because I have all of this headcanon that, like, I think is cool and I want readers to know and I want to make sure everything makes sense. But I'm always having to, like, pull it back, because if you give too much, then it's overwhelming and it's an info dump and it slows the story down. And I think that it's really cool how she doesn't do that. She just kind of gives you enough for the story to continue on. And I like that a lot. And I also really like her art style in this genre. I think it's just so cool to have a sci-fi that looks like this. And it's not like I don't know what you would see for like a typical kind of sci-fi comic with like big, like super detailed ships, or like, I don't know, whatever, like more kind of typical sci-fi-ish. And I think it just fits the tone of the comic really well, because it's sci-fi, but it's not about the ships and the tech and all that stuff. It really is more about the emotionality of the characters. And I feel like the art fits that really well.
Right. It's almost the opposite of Star Wars, where Star Wars is about lightsabers and shooting each other and duels and the Force and all and these things. You know, Tillie's more about character and giving these characters arcs and moments and resolutions and the melodrama of their lives, much more than some other sci-fi stories we've seen. You know, I think the Star Trek, Next Generation does this to, kind of more of an ensemble cast, and we get little moments with characters and stuff. It's closer to a Star Trek than it is a Star Wars. You know what I mean? In that sense. And I think Sarah touched on something that I would like to comment on, is sort of the narrative arc. When we're writing a story for comics, we really want to insert a little bit of information at a time to our reader. We have long grown past Stan Lee's giant caption boxes, where it's like, here's everything that's going on in this panel. It's 40 words. You're welcome, and there and stuff. Like, comics have evolved a lot since then. So, this book really has great narrative arcs. We're given a little bit at a time. All right, there's a rising action. There's something climactic that happens, and then the hill goes back down. And then we're given a little bit more dialogue and a little bit more about the world. And this book spoon feeds you. It gives you like a little bit, and then it gives you some action scenes, and then we're back. We're back to the story, or you know what I'm saying. Narrative. It's the narrative wave. I talk about this all the time in my class. Sorry, I had to bring it up. Okay. Does anybody else want to comment on a particular part of the story or anything?
I wanted to. Oh, sorry, Sean. Do you go ahead?
You should. No, actually, you go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to piggyback off of Sarah, and specifically the mentions of the world building, and the fact that the whole theme is like the whole theme of the whole text is addressing your past and finding a way to find closure and move forward. Like everyone's arc ties back to that. Shar and Alma have their dangerous past, trying to accept their new life. Mia has Grace. Eli has all the things that happen in the staircase, and Jules has her mother. And then their job is restoring decrepit buildings and giving them new life. Like their very job is a reflection. The world building and the setting reflects the characters' internal lives, and I think that's neat.
That's so cool.
That's a great point, Ari. I didn't pick up on that at all. That the fixing the buildings, these characters are very flawed and they have a lot going on, and they're dealing with a lot of sort of like a deconstruction to construction kind of thing going on there. Sean, dude, what are your thoughts? Sean, you have the floor.
Oh, it wasn't related to what was talked about. I think Ari, what you brought up was really awesome. Yeah, I mean, these are characters. I mean, even the way that Mia is sent on this journey was like, you failed every class. Like, like there's one thing you can do is put your life back together by putting buildings back together. Like, yeah. So I did not catch on that. That's really cool. I just wanted to bring up the elephant in the room. Like, no, it's all women. I mean, women. Well,
yeah. No, we need to talk about.
Sure, but like the only references to like men is like somebody using dude or man or grow some balls at one point, which I picked up. But like on this whatever umpteenth read. But yeah, just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah. It's not explained in the book, but it's a society of women in space. There isn't any really male protagonists. There isn't any male characters, and that's definitely something. That's Tillie's choice for sure. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I honestly didn't even notice it the first time I read it until I was at page 400. It's just treated as normal. I think it's interesting because like sometimes we'll see like a movie and there will be like no women or like one woman, and we won't even like notice it till we finish the movie, and we're like, that's a great movie. And then some of my friends will be like, bro, I don't think there was a single woman. Was there a woman in that movie? And I'll be like, oh crud, no. And it's interesting. I think Tillie Walden was just like, lol, what if I did the reverse? Would anyone notice?
I love it. And same, like I did not notice until like I was most of the way through the book. I mean, the characters are just so strong, and like it's like, yeah, I loved it. Like I'm like, yeah, you can tell stories without ever needing dudes in it. It's amazing.
Yeah, comics have come a long way. I think back to like the 1960s. Jack Kirby and Stan Lee making X-Men, right? And it's the team. It's Iceman. It's Cyclops, it's Angel, and Jean Grey's role in that book was she was just kind of the object of affection. Like it was just all the male characters. If you go back and reread those comics, it's just like, it's mostly the male characters are hitting on Jean Grey the whole time. And that's the woman character, in that book. And I think comics have come a long way, especially through the 2000s and 10s and stuff. We have all kinds of stories, all kinds of narratives, and different views from different walks of life, and I think that's great. I mean, comics can be more than just capes, more than just superheroes. We can tell very human stories that can relate to our day-to-day lives, right?
So I do have to say at this point that I do also really like superheroes. They're fun.
Oh, I do too. I mean, look, I got like Kitty Pryde and Human Torch on my wall, I'm a big. And I see Sarah's got Harley Quinn over there,
And Gotham.
Right. Right. I think we're all fans here of superheroes. But like I said, I think the opportunities to tell stories outside of that have grown a lot, with comics, we're able to tell a lot more challenging, narratives, and there's an audience there for that, right? Let's see, we're at 50. Does anybody else, any more thoughts on A Sunbeam, Tillie Walden? Any more thoughts? Where would you rank this book? I think that could be fun.
It's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it definitely stuck with me. What'd you say, Sarah?
I think it is for me too.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites as well. Especially if in the sci-fi genre, I would rank it pretty high. Shandu, where would you place this book?
Oh, I might really like it. I mean, I haven't read a whole lot of books, like when partly because of what you were saying earlier is like there's just such a giant volume. It's like really hard to know, and have good sources or of recommendation of saying, oh, what's a good book here, and a lot of them are continuing stories too. Like, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I have the time for this. So like, but this being a standalone volume. As a self-contained story, amazing characters, potential for spin-offs for sure. I would like to see what Grace did those 5 years, on the staircase. But yeah, definitely up there.
Yeah, who knows if we'll ever get a spin-off. Tillie seems pretty busy with other projects. Yeah. I mean, I would love a sequel to this. I don't think we're gonna get one. Yeah. I feel like it's been so many books since this one, so I think the chance is small, but I'll hold out some hope for it. There was some moments in the book that reminded me of movies, like when it's revealed that it was a word in another language, and it's revealed that it means sunbeam, that their fish is named after a sunbeam, and also, like I said, with the cover, this image. We're shown this at the beginning of the book, right? We're given this image of the spaceship, but we aren't shown the context until later. It's just sort of a random moment, and then that is recontextualized later in the book. And I thought it was a very Christopher Nolan thing to do. Like, really, you're just going to tell the narrative out of the story. But comics are great like that. You can do that. You could put that panel in there and repeat that panel later. I think that's a trick that Darwin Cook talked about. When you're making a book, it's great to have that panel and have a callback panel, to that one in your story. It makes the reader feel, like things are connected and stuff. But this has been a real pleasure. Thanks everyone who came to share your thoughts on A Sunbeam. Maybe we'll do part 2 sometime. Maybe we won't. Maybe there will be a sequel. I don't know. But
there's
yeah,
a sequel, we will.
So much for dropping in. What'd you say?
I said if there's a sequel, we will.
Oh, a sequel? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If there's a sequel, we'll jump right back in. So I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna have everybody go around. I want you to talk about your social media, or any kind of books or projects you're working on. I know we're all cartoonists, and there's things we want to talk about, and there's works we want to promote. I'm gonna start off with Shandu because I know him the best. And Shandu has a new book he just launched a new series. So Shandu, where can we find you, and tell us about your project?
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, most of my stuff you can find on my website, tenity.art. It's kind of like my Instagram handle right there. So there's a link section. You can find most of my things. I'm also on Ko-fi, where you can actually buy the book that I just launched. It's called All Our Monsters. This is the first issue in hopefully a series, which someday maybe can be a graphic novel on its own. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I'm totally self-publishing this. Like, it's not, so we'll see where it goes. But it's the protagonist is like a non-binary teenager, and like and it's set in a fantasy world, and like as their family is a refugee, and they're like fleeing like an oppressive regime, and like in that during that the main character discovers a power, and the rest of the series kind of expands on that, and we find out what the nature of what that is.
So slow burn. Congratulations on your series,
Yeah,
Sean,
congrats.
and launching your book. I know you've had it in works for a while. I feel like last time I talked to you, I was like, this is a big year for you. You know, Sean's launched his series, and I think I talked to you about your knee deep in scripting issue 4. So yeah, congrats to you. That's awesome, Sean. Ari, where can we find you, and where is your work?
Hey, my name's Ari. Sorry, you all knew that. I'm at AstroAxolotl on Tumblr, and that's where all of my work is. I don't have a Ko-Fi or anything yet because I'm kind of new to figuring out how social media works.
That's fine. We all are. We all are now, ever since I don't want to talk about that stuff. All right, Sarah Cook, what's your book and projects going on?
So the 3rd issue of my series, No Spell Lasts Forever, and I think I have one here.
Hold it up. All right.
That's issue 2. The 3rd issue is live on Kickstarter right now for about 9 more days. It's a thanks. It's a contemporary fantasy about a magic-using criminal who meets an early death and makes a deal with the devil for a second chance at life. And her task is to corrupt one truly good soul. And so her kind of arc is figuring out if she can really go through with that. And is she the kind of person who can do this? And if not, what does it mean for her and for her fate of her eternal soul? So that is live on Kickstarter for about 9 more days. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Sarah C Comics, and the link to my newsletter and all my stuff is in my Instagram bio.
Awesome.
I have to say, Sarah, I love your newsletters and your Kickstarter updates and the way you highlight other projects. But I will say, like, Sarah's Kickstarter is doing really, really well. You've hit multiple stretch goals at this point.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Awesome. No, we're more than C3 is more than happy to have Sarah and Ari here with us joining the stream and stuff. My name's Carl Lucas. You can find my new book, Shogun Bear and the House of Horrors. He's a samurai polar bear that fights ghosts and demons. You can find my book on carllucasdraws.com, and you can look at my other drawings and stuff if you want, if you have time. Okay, well, go read a book. Thanks everyone for joining our C3, the first C3 comic book reading club stream. It was a pleasure to talk about On a Sunbeam by Tillie Walden. Please join us on social media, Columbus Cartoon Coalition, and join us on the Fable app if you have any interest in discussing our next book. With that, I'm going to get out of here. Take care, everyone. And it was a pleasure having everyone here. I can't stress that enough. It was really awesome. Really happy with the stream. So goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
C3. Thanks, Carl.
All right, bye. C3.
C3.
All right, bye, everybody. All right, goodbye.